Hello students, in this video we will discuss JavaScript promises. A promise in JavaScript is an object that returns whether an operation has successfully completed or not. So, assume we have a multiple operations chained up. Now, you need someone to keep track on the eventual completion or failure of that particular option. Then we use promise. And promises plays an important role in asynchronous operations, where it is necessary to keep track on the completion of a task. So here it's clearly mentioned to handle asynchronous operations by providing a mechanism to handle successes or failures. And this returns an object, whether it is a failure or success. Now, what is the benefit we get using promises? Promises are better than callbacks, resulting in more readable and maintainable code. So, a promise, you can understand, a promise is an object that returns an eventual output of an operation, whether it is successful or a failure. And with this, we can have a more precise code that is easy to read and maintain. Let's see how to create and use a promise. This is the basic syntax of a promise. So here we created an object to which we have assigned a promise, and as you can see, it has two parameters, resolve and reject. So basically you can say, by looking at their names, resolve denotes success and reject denotes failure. Here I have used a placeholder condition. Here we will have an actual condition. You can place an actual condition. So based on this condition, it decides whether it's resolved or rejected, and accordingly we can have our eventual steps that needs to be carried out. Okay, and if you observe closely, we have used dot then and dot catch. Dot catch is a very efficient way to handle errors when we are dealing with promises. In the coming slides, we will talk in detail about the exception handling part of promises. Okay, so here the object dot then success message. If it is success, we will get this message, and if it's a failure due to an exception, we will get the failure message. So dot then and dot catch, they work in hand by hand. So it's a very basic structure of how promises can be created. Now, what are the different states of a promise and what exactly the life cycle of a promise is? Let's discuss states. The initial state is pending state, where it is neither fulfilled nor rejected. The promise has neither fulfilled nor rejected. The second state is fulfilled, the operation completed successfully. And the third one is the operation failed. So these are the three states of a promise. And what is its life cycle? It starts in pending state and moves to either fulfilled or rejected state. So this is the simple depiction of how, what are the states, what are the different states of a promise and what is its life cycle. Then things get interesting with chaining multiple promises. So we can chain multiple promises where you can assign each promise to a designated operation. So suppose assume we have promise 1 for operation 1 and promise 2 for operation 2. Now the promise 2 will wait for promise 1 to give the result. So when you want to when you want operations to work in a sequence, you may use chaining multiple promises. So to execute 2 or more asynchronous operations back to back, where each subsequent operation starts when the previous operation succeeds. Okay, this is important. When the subsequent operation starts when the previous operation succeeds, then we can use chaining promises. Okay, here we have assumed a basic example. It's not a valid example. In order to keep things very simple, I have used this one. It's written in simple English. So assume we have a function in which based on the first result the second function is called, and based on the second result the third function is called. Okay, like this we can have a chain of multiple promises designated for all the operations. Okay, and if at some point the operation fails, we have dot catch along with the error parameter ready to specifically point out at which point the error has occurred. So what are the other benefits of promises? We have got a very robust error handling mechanism with promises. So what is the need for error handling? So here we are dealing with asynchronous operations, guys. So these operations generally depend on the result of the previous operation. In such cases, it is very much necessary for us to have a good error handling operation. Okay, so for that we have dot catch method to handle any errors that occur in the promise chain, and also we can use try catch with async and await. Okay, async and await comes in the next concept of asynchronous operations. It's a very interesting part where we will be dealing with async and await. So in such cases we use try catch along with async await for synchronous like handling style. Okay, so JavaScript has one specific characteristic when it comes to asynchronous operations. Though the operations are being handled asynchronously, but for the user they all look like synchronous. For example, logging into a web page and downloading data from a web page. Behind all these things, JavaScript asynchronous operations play a very crucial role. Let's take login into a page. When we enter an email ID and when we enter a password, so these two can be designated as two different operations, validating the user ID, that is the email, and validating the password. So these two things, they happen asynchronously, the validation happens asynchronously, but to us they look like synchronous, one after the other. So that is handled by promises. And promises, once again I repeat, promises comes with very robust error handling method, that is dot catch. Dot catch can easily identify at what point the error has occurred and at what point the promise has rejected it. Okay, so these are the these are the methods that are related to promises, and you please practice these promises during your lab sessions. So what are the advanced usage patterns? So along with the conventional dot then dot catch and other methods, we also have some advanced methods. Here are they. So promise dot all waits for all the promises to be resolved. For anyone, promise dot all, it waits for all the promises to be resolved or for any to be rejected. So when we use promise.all, it either wait for all the promises to be resolved, then it says resolved, or it will stop at any point if an error occurred. So this is useful for executing multiple asynchronous tasks concurrently and handling their results together. So promise.all has this usage. Then we have promise.raise. It resolves or rejects as soon as one of the promises in a iterable resolves or rejects. Okay. So promise.raise is an interesting method where, suppose if you have a sequence of promises that are lined up, if even if one promise is resolved, then it resolves all the iterable resolves, and if one gets rejected, it rejects the remaining as well. Okay, this is a very important promise where you can use it for fields where you cannot allow even a single error to occur. So that is where we use promise.raise. And then we have async await. These are the modern syntax to handle promises in a more synchronous looking fashion, making code easier to read and debug. So this is where at this point where we are going to start the new concept called asynchronous operations. It's going to be really easy. I've deliberately saved it for a separate session where I want to spend most of the time with it. Okay, so this is all about promises. We'll come back with asynchronous operations in the next session. Thank you.